And we're live. Welcome to Lakers Late Night. Here we are on a nice Sunday evening where the New York Giants fans are stressing about the game that they just have. And we Lakers fans just got to sit through a blowout for the first time in like forever. I am joined by Ben Rosales. Ben, how are you? You look nice and comfortable again. I'm always so envious about how you get to sit through these things.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to pick my spots. I mean, that's the glory of being not college student, but still student. Right? I mean, I'm always trying to relax. It's before I jump into the real world and get my hopes and dreams destroyed.
Ben Rosales, like you're at this point, you're kind of like Kobe, where you just kind of spot up, wherever you might be.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Exactly. I just kind of dish out the assist to you, and you're like, I'm gonna just knock these points down, man. That's great stuff. I really appreciate you joining us tonight, Ben. You tweeted out. I thought you sent out the most telling tweet of the night, having to do with the talent levels of the two teams. And I don't think, like, even when while the worst NBA team is still on a different playing level than the best European team, in recent years, I'm not sure that these games would have been so dominant on the Lakers end as it was tonight. I mean, how did you just the talent levels and the difference between them? How did you watch that tonight with the Lakers and Maccabi Haifa?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to remember that. I mean, the NBA is still the premier league in the world. I mean, if we're using a soccer analogy, it's the top soccer league is there, and everyone else is a different level of relegation below them. So it's just reflecting that reality. And you have to remember that Haifa is just the best team in the Israeli league, and I mean, it's the Israeli league. No offense to Israel, but I mean, it's not exactly a basketball powerhouse. And I mean, there are a lot of better teams in Europe than Maccabi. So I mean, this is like it would probably be equivalent if the Lakers played a college team. I mean, I mean, some of the higher college teams would probably give them a bigger test.
I'd imagine so.
Yeah. Than these guys. So I mean, it's just, you saw during the game, there's a certain point where stuff would break down. Maybe the Lakers weren't running as crisply as they were in previous times, but they would just get things to work because, I mean, it's a different level of athlete, a different level of player. I mean, at a certain point, I mean, Maccabi just can't keep up. I mean, it's varsity versus JV. It's just overwhelming.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything more telling in terms of the quality of tweets and the the intelligence of tweet than your pointing that out and my wondering if the Lakers' effort is real. I apologize. I apologize in advance for anybody who just started following me because of the show and because of Silver Screen and all. That's the kind of stuff you get to look forward to from my feed. No, but on that same level, I mean, I'm looking at the Lakers box score right now, and even if somebody wasn't watching the game and just tuned in afterward and looked at the box score, it's really, really rare that actually tells a legitimate story from the game. But if you look at the box score, you're looking at all these guys. I mean, only Jordan Clarkson shot the ball poorly in the starting five. You have Hibbert pulling down 16 boards. You have Randall pulling down 9 in only 24 minutes. You have Nick Young shooting 6 for 10. But statistically, or we'll just talk about more generally on your end. What was the number one thing that you really noticed that really kind of spells out how the game went individually within the Lakers?
I think it's the 3-point shooting. I mean, they went 14 for 26. I mean, the ball, I mean, in Mike D'Antoni's terms, was finding energy. They were getting to the open guy. There was good driving kick action. There was good high-low action. I mean, the terms of Princeton sets, I mean, we have to remember that Hibbert played in the Princeton he was at Georgetown under John Thompson. So, I mean, he knows or at least has a greater familiarity with these reads. So there's a lot of times he's setting Randall up on high lows. He's throwing the entry pass to Kobe, things like that. So I mean, there's a lot of and then people who were spotting up were actually hitting their shots. So people had spacing, and then after that, the Haifa's just not that good to stop hitting this in the first place. I mean, you ended up with a lot of good flow, and even when the flow wasn't quite there, you had Young, you had Lou Williams kind of bailing the team out with tough jumpers from beyond the line, and then I mean that just keeps the defense on their heels, and there's just not much more that they can do at that point. So I mean, to a certain extent, I mean, yeah, this is a reflection of their opponent, but it's also a sign of how things work much better once there's proper spacing. That opens up room for all the cuts that we saw during the game from Clarkson, from Russell, from Randall, what have you, and pretty much everything else that they run. I mean, we can still quibble with the system, but I mean, this is kind of the pinnacle of Byron's system working in theory when you have the spacing that's needed, and of course, I mean, that's not necessarily going to be there every night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm again, the thing that I took away, and you mentioned, Hibbert throwing the ball out of the post and how the ball had energy. I should pour a little liquor out for Mike D'Antoni. But I'm you look at again the stats. I don't think there's anything more telling about the difference athletically between the Lakers and their opponent tonight than just the rebounds. I mean, the Lakers overall had 61 rebounds, and then their, Maccabi had 26 rebounds.
Right.
That's just people being faster to the ball. But I mean, you still have to take advantage. It's like they always say in college football: you play who's ever on your schedule.
Right.
And the Lakers took advantage of that tonight. But I'd like to get back to that point that you made about how the ball having energy and moving around quickly and finding spot up shooters. There was a possession tonight. I forget who started with the ball in the post, but it made its way out to Kobe, and then he skipped it across, found another one, then got back to Kobe wide open in the corner. I think, was it Randall that started that possession?
I think Black was on there. He kicked it out to Russell in the corner. He threw it to, I forget who it was, to Lou Williams, who was near the top of the key. He pump faked, defender went by, and he threw it to Kobe in the corner, and Kobe hit the corner three. But yeah, I mean, we always side to side pass sequences like that, you always praise as good ball movement, and that was definitely a case where, I mean, everyone was kind of familiar where everyone else was. There was good spacing on the floor, and things generally moved well, which, I mean, it hasn't for the most part under Byron so far. So I mean, that's something we haven't seen for quite a while.
It was also a matter too of, in recent years, there were a bunch of guys when that ball goes out from the post that you didn't necessarily have to close out hard on.
Right.
So when the ball is coming out to D'Angelo Russell, even though he hasn't shot the ball particularly well in the NBA, in college and just in general, he looks like somebody who should be able to shoot the ball pretty well. And then when they close out to him and the ball then goes to Lou Williams, you definitely have to, close out hard to him. And that leaves just all that, even if it's just a half a second difference makes a huge difference for a shooter like Kobe in the corner. That was, again, it's hard to glean too much from preseason, especially against an opponent like they played tonight. But, in essence, that's something that's kind of cool to watch, where the basketball purist hasn't had much stuff like that to watch.
Yeah. On that note, I mean, it's helped that this team, I think, as you said, not only has shooters, or at least people that we hope are good shooters, such as Russell or Anthony Brown, but people who are just good passers, or at least have good floor sets. I mean, Russell obviously has that in spades, but I mean, Clarkson's gradually getting better at that. Randall's, people were worried when he was coming into the league whether he's just going to be the bull in the china shop. He's just going to try to rush everything at the rim, but he's making all these nice reads and kicking the ball out. I mean, he's going to get better at that, of course, but I mean, that he's doing it in of itself is a big improvement. And then by and large, up and down the roster, we have a lot of guys who are just good at passing, or at least know that at a certain point you can't put the ball down and just go to the rim. You have to like accept that there are certain reads you have to make, other than Jabari Brown. But
yeah, for everybody but that guy,
he's a little bit of a lost cause. But yeah, I mean, just in terms of the personnel, are just much more attuned to it. I mean, even Nick Young was making like the pass to the next guy. Yeah, and I mean that's just, and God knows if that's something we can actually look forward to. But I mean, it shows you how kind of in sync the team was tonight, that this is all moving so fluidly.
It's great. I can't wait to see, last year or 2 years ago, I don't know when the actual meme took place, when he shoots the ball and he's kind of looking up like this, but this year he's going to make the pass and he's going to look up like this and the shot's going to miss. It's going to be great. And for those who tune in tomorrow on iTunes, I was just holding up you guys have all seen the meme. So anyway, the other thing too, I have a couple points to make just in general about the way the Lakers are perceived at this point before we kind of move on, because there is a legitimate conversation to have about the way that the roster is constructed. But in terms of narrative, I always get kind of frustrated with narrative because they seem to be easy takes. It's the Jameis Winston is going to be a bust hot take that just drives me nuts. With the Lakers, it's Lou Williams is a chucker. It's Jordan Clarkson was a looter and a riot. It's Kobe Bryant is going to be a chucker. And so far this season, to a very large extent, those narratives have gone here to die. Statistically, Kobe Bryant has been a pretty good spot-up shooter. Jordan Clarkson has proven that, he was more than just somebody who benefited by playing around nobody last year. And Lou Williams continues to show that he has basketball IQ.
Right.
Of those three narratives that we are kind of watching take form, in the opposite direction, that we're watching not being proven, but taking strides to say that those narratives can be kind of easy or lazy. Of those three, which one would you say is one most proven to be false thus far, and two more sustainable going that proper direction? Would you say?
Can you list the three again?
Yeah. So for me, it was coming into this preseason. It was Jordan Clarkson being a looter and a riot.
Oh, okay.
It was Kobe being unable to adapt to more of a spot up shooter kind of role. And then also, I mean, I think this one's going to be more of a distant third, but Lou Williams being, somehow lacking a basketball IQ that you would like to see out of that bench role. But I think Lou Williams has actually shown himself to be a viable creator for others.
Right. I mean, even in his past stops, I mean, it's not, Lou's been, I mean, he is who he is. He shoots quite a bit, but I mean, he's never been entirely bereft of court vision or been a black hole of that sort. So I mean, the people who are purporting that narrative, I mean, probably haven't watched Lou a whole lot. I mean, yeah. In terms of the other two, I mean, I think it's two. I mean, it's nice to look at what Kobe's doing. It's nice to think that he's turning a new leaf. But I mean, it's you still have to wait for one, a larger sample size, two, how he does in the regular season, how things work when the plays break down, what he resorts to. I mean, even in this game where, I mean, he was concentrating on the spot shooting and he was doing the things we want him to do, he was still taking those Kobe chucking shots that you look and you grimace at, and you try not to grimace that much because I mean we've seen this for the past 20 years, but by the same token, I mean those are the shots that make us, at least in the deep back of our mind, that we haven't suppressed, try to tear our hair out, especially with a young roster like this. But I will say that I think Clarkson does look really good. So far, I think his big trouble is dealing with the new paradigm of guys
playing off the ball.
Playing off the ball. I mean, I think it's a bit overstated that he needs to be at point guard. I mean, the point guard is, I mean, essentially in the modern league, he's not necessarily handling the ball all the time. I mean, it's fine to be a secondary or a tertiary creator, and I mean, you get the ball off the pass from your primary creator, then you do something with it, or he gets the ball and runs another pick and roll on the wing or what have you. I mean, it's not like he can't play make in that role. And I think for the most part, he's acquitting himself well. He's having some shooting troubles. I mean, I think there's a bit of an emphasis on him now to space the floor that he's having a bit of trouble with. So we had to see whether, because I mean, coming into the draft, he was his big question about him was whether, aside from whether he had playmaking bona fides, was whether he could shoot. Mm-hmm. And that was always a question that dragged him at Missouri. So I mean, we'll have to see how it goes. I mean, by all accounts, he was supposed to improve on his three-point shooting, become more of a spot-up threat, and that's been very flaky up and down. So that's something to analyze. I certainly don't think, I mean, that at this point it's pretty obvious that like last year wasn't a fluke. And I mean, he clearly has real NBA skills. That can be put to use on as part of the future core. I mean, there's a question of what his future role can be. I mean, does his ceiling top out at a certain point and he has to be a six man, as certain people have said? Or can he and Russell eventually learn how to coexist properly? Can he, Russell, and Randall, all of whom kind of need the ball in some fashion, all learn how to coexist together? And that might be dependent on how good their shooting, each of their respective outside shooting strokes become. And I mean, that's something we'll have to see. And I mean, we're still very early in preseason. Yeah, exactly. So making big prognostications of how the season's going to go is tough. But I mean, you're right. I mean, the narratives are narratives. Like you said, it's lazy takes. But I mean, there's certain things that we just have to wait to go. I mean, I think the one of the most, to answer your question, most likely to endure is Kobe really going to kind of suppress who he is, more or less, for the team concept. I mean, all the credit to Kobe in the world. I mean, but I'll believe that he does so when we actually see it over the course of the season. And I think, I mean, it's not to say that he won't work off the ball more, but I mean, he's still going to be the guy in the offense. I mean, I don't see him ever taking a back seat to anyone. And eventually, I mean, we'll have more than enough time to talk about this during the year in terms of what that applies to the Lakers' future. But at least as far as this year's concerned, if he takes a back seat, great. I decided hard to believe that happens.
It's crazy. I know this is nuts to those of you, the hot take artists out there, but sometimes let's just wait and see is a better take than anything you could possibly say in the moment. I completely agree with everything you just said. One certain, again, to bring up the hot takery that can occur sometimes in relation to the Lakers' social media. D'Angelo Russell coming off the bench, and there was a lot of, hey, should this be something that they would see more often throughout the year? Does this make the rotations make a lot more sense? I'm one to say, hey, just the more often you can have the best basketball players on the court, the better, especially together. Yeah. That's kind of my state of mind when it comes to the Lakers rotations. But what do you have to say about D'Angelo Russell potentially coming off of the bench?
I don't agree with it, mainly because, I mean, at a certain point, you have to see how Russell plays with the other primary members of this core. I mean, there's a fair argument. Yeah, I get where the people who are saying this are coming from. You want to give Russell more space to do his thing. You want to give him the keys to the offense such that it improves his overall development. But I mean, you can still do that and just stagger the minutes appropriately so that when the bench comes in, he's the guy that's directing things primarily. I mean, it's not so hard as to put the minutes as such as to make that happen. Although, again, Byron and rotation management, so God knows how that works out. But but no, I mean, even still, the future core, I mean, at least as far as we see it at the moment, is Russell with Clarkson and Randall. And we don't know whether this is a core that it can endure until you throw them out on the court and they figure out how to play with one another. So, I mean,
more than 2 preseason games, for more than a preseason game of 4 minutes.
Exactly. And even then, I mean, as far as Russell's development goes, I mean, he also has to learn to play off the ball. He also has to learn to to cut. I mean, to how to deal with other creators on the floor. I mean, it's I take issue with the notion that his development is impaired because he's playing with Clarkson and Randall is necessarily out there. So I mean, I don't see it as productive. I mean, in terms of a long-term view of the franchise, I think you need to see how those three work together, and those three need to kind of build their own chemistry together as much as possible and figure out ways in which they do work well with one another. And I think that's really the bottom line here. I mean, the more you delay that question, say Russell comes off the bench and he rarely, if ever, plays with Clarkson this year. He rarely, if ever, plays with Randall this year, or at least their exposure to each other is limited to lineups where they're the only creators and they don't have to kind of think about these questions that much. Come next year, if we're not starting Randall Clarkson and Russell Clarkson and Randall in that lineup, I don't know what's happened.
Yeah, this year didn't go very well.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, they're almost certainly going to be at the forefront of next year's team. And you don't want these questions of, how are we going to play with each other dogging next year's team. This year is when you kind of start to get that out of the way and see how things work out. And I mean, it's not to say that it's going to be easy or there's not going to be complications. I mean, Kobe dominating the ball, kind of a big aspect in that respect. But I mean, I don't see it as productive in the long term. We might revisit this and say, hey, like we've seen them play together. They really have problems. They're kind of it's not really working. Let's separate them a bit and then see how they reform each by themselves. Like, okay, but for the moment, I mean, you have to get them to try to play with each other. And I mean, I think the front office also recognizes that. So, I mean, they've talked about Russell and Clarkson as our backcourt for the next 10 years or what have you.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure that's pretty high expectations.
Yeah, that's optimistic.
Yeah, but by the same token, it also shows, I mean, they want these guys to play together. I mean, Mitch has gone out and said that, yeah, these guys can play together. So, I mean, it doesn't make any sense for me to kind of not test that and see how it goes and declare defeat from day one. Like, why would you do that? Like, throw them together, and I mean, let's start the process of developing this chemistry as soon as you can.
Yeah, I kind of look at it. I'm a huge Colbert fan, and I mean, I enjoyed everything he did on the Colbert Report. Right. I enjoy when he would sit in for Jon Stewart and all that stuff. So I obviously had some pretty high hopes for when he took over his late night show. Right. And a lot of what we heard, the initial reviews is, look, I love Colbert, but it just hasn't been that good. He had Donald Trump, and it just wasn't that entertaining.
Right.
And the way I kind of look at everything in its initial stages is these things need time to work themselves out.
Right.
You know? People need, time, whether on the court, in front of the camera, whatever, to gain some kind of rhythm in talking or working with each other. And, when people are bringing up, when they're already saying, yeah, they're probably better served playing apart from each other in the starting lineup, that's where I say, whoa. Let's take, again, these guys have been playing together for basically, 2 weeks of practice, maybe 2.5 weeks of practice, a few exhibition games in the summer, and then now again right now. And then 2 of which, or for most of 2 games, Russell wasn't even able to play because he got hurt.
Right.
Let's just let these guys work some stuff out. And just like we'll see with Colbert, we'll probably look back on the initial stages of Colbert and laugh at how bad he was at the very beginning and say, this is what he turned into. This is how the show evolved.
Right. I
think that's what we'll wind up seeing with these 2 guys or these 3 guys when you include Randall in that analogy as well.
Right.
That about does it on my end in terms of recapping this game. Again, it was a 46 or 43 point. I'm an English major, so I stink at math. It was a 43-point demolishment at the hands, or that the Lakers threw down on these guys. I wasn't here for last game, and the game before that, I was able to watch from Twitter the game with Toronto, and then I've been here for the other ones. Thus far, we're what? We're about halfway through the preseason at this point, right? I think we're exactly halfway. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, reaching your highest expectations you possibly could have had for the Lakers at this point, and 1 being the Mike Brown 2012 preseason that they had. Where would you put the Lakers? How have they done so far in your eyes on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh, that's a good one. They're around like a 6.5 to a 7. I mean, there's clearly, I mean, at this point, I mean, the thing that's helping the team is that there's so many young guys that we follow, is that we kind of give the team that's how the team as a whole performs a break, since 1, we don't care about how many wins the team gets, and 2, we're far more interested in seeing the development of these young guys versus the team's overall performance. So, I mean, as far as the team itself as a whole looks, I mean, they have a lot of holes to tonight's game notwithstanding, because of the nature of the opponent. So, I mean, it's still Byron, it's still this system. I mean, right. So, I mean, I feel there are still severe structural limits in terms of what they can do. But by the same token, I mean, I feel we've been pleasantly surprised, at least to me, in terms of how well certain things have clicked right at the start. Randall coming in and just being kind of a lot farther along than I thought he would be after seeing him in Summer League. I thought, I mean, he'd have to sit there and develop a lot more. I mean, Brian's throwing him in with the starting lineup. There's no any sort of illusion that Bass is going to take his spot. I mean, at this point, I think that ship has sailed more or less.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. That I mean, also that in terms of Hibbert, like, I knew he was good at defense. I didn't realize that he would be this defensive rotation savant from day one and like make things look immeasurably better.
We employ Bill Russell.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, seriously. So I mean, it's just and then lastly, Lou Williams kind of just seamlessly stepping in and providing kind of that what he does. I mean, his shot making role off the bench without detracting from the flow of the offense, like you've seen kind of Young do for the past 2 years. I mean, he does his thing without kind of the offense bogging down. And I mean, he's been able to do that without a point guard next to him for the most part. So he's kind of been able to kind of free range and do his thing without much encumbrance. But by the same token, I mean, he's been able to do so far with this unit is kind of great, since he's doing what we want him to do, and showing that last season where he posted career high numbers, I mean, contract year, 6th man of the year season, that wasn't necessarily a fluke. Like the things we thought he could do well, he's doing well for the most part. So on the whole, I mean, yeah, there are pockets of individual kind of surprise. I mean, we should give the team credit insofar as kind of how they've meshed that. The team seems to be trying hard. I think that's kind of, with so many young guys, I feel you have greater lenience to be hard ass like Byron did. I mean, the young guys
4-day practices.
Right. I mean, the young guys tune you out a lot slower because, I mean, they're used to this from college. This is how college coaches teach. I mean, they substitute discipline and work harder, run harder, stop being pussies for like real kind of strategy, since you have a 35-second clock and everyone runs garbage offices and what have you. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think we might revise this grade by the end of the preseason if their chemistry still doesn't look better. I think it's been a bit mired by the fact that Russell's been hurt, so we haven't been, I think as we said in previous podcasts, we haven't got a chance to kind of see the Russell, Clarkson, Kobe, Randall, Hibbert lineup out there all the time and see that work out and see how Byron deals with that. I mean, so I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, one thing in Byron's credit is that I mean, I think we've complained from the moment he's gone here about the Prince. I mean, he runs a very pure Prince, which the centers at the top. He's making the passes for the backdoor cuts, for the high-low passes, and all that. and Hibbert can actually do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, the system to a certain degree is working because Hibbert's kind of fits pretty seamlessly into it on both ends.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we'll have to see how that ultimately borne out. But I mean, sorry, people. I mean, he's the team's best player at this point.
He is.
I mean, he's so much better than everyone else defensively, and he provides that value in offense from offensive rebounding. Really good on offensive rebounding, in fact, mid-range shooting, and occasionally a few post-ups and dive-ins. But on the whole, I mean, it's hard to view the team, and just he's far and away the best center the team's had since Dwight. I mean, it's just without question.
Very easily. I would tend to agree that I'd say, you know, a 7.5 is a fair grade or a fair way to assess the way the preseason has gone so far. Personally, because of the way the injuries have gone the last 2 years, I'm going to go ahead and say that it's like a, you know, out of 10, I'll scale it at about a 27,000 because everybody is still alive at this point in preseason.
Until Huertas like breaks his leg apart when he 1 minute until his first game, but yeah,
I you know, everything considered, all the moving parts that came in. I mean, when you think about it, Kobe is legitimately playing with 4 people he's never started with in his life.
Right.
You know, he's never played. He never started with Randall. I don't believe Randall started right away last year, and he never played with Clarkson last year the way Clarkson played last year. Yep. And you know, you go down the line. Hibbert, obviously, he just started playing with, and then Russell is rookie. So everything considered, all the moving parts. That the Lakers have been competitive in every single game to this point, and then finally dominated. I mean, tonight I can't overstate or state clearly enough how completely they dominated this game. You know, and at no point last season, regardless of who they were playing, they could have played against Cal State effing Fullerton, and I don't think it would have looked as ugly as it looked tonight.
Yeah.
Shout out to my alma mater. But no, but you know, to watch something like they played tonight, following the way they've competed with everybody else, I'm gonna go ahead and say preseason has gone very well. You know, to this point, with possibilities for growth moving forward.
Right.
Speaking of moving forward, we have Tuesday, I believe, right? Tuesday they play the Kings, 7 o'clock Pacific time. We will be right here again. This week. Go ahead and check out all of our stuff on iTunes. If you aren't listening right now, go ahead and check in and subscribe to the podcast there. Ben, thank you very, very much for tuning in or calling in or just joining. English major who can't speak properly. You are on. It's going on 1 in the morning your time out there on the East Coast. So
oh no, I'm back in the West Coast for a week. So
I never know, man. No, but regardless, if you could have called in or you could have joined from literally anywhere on the planet. I always appreciate your insight and your complete and utter disregard for hot takery. I'll listen to anybody who speaks in that fashion about any sports. So thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you. Sounds good. It was great to come on.
Good stuff. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Again, Tuesday night is the next Lakers late night. Please check out my last Lakers Lounge with Dave Schilling. That's also on iTunes. And then look for this week's Lakers Lounge with a guest to be determined. Thanks, everybody.